I want you to close your eyes for a second. Just picture yourself standing on the bridge of a massive ship. You're the captain.
Right.
You've got the crisp uniform, the hat, the whole look. You're gripping the wheel, staring out at the horizon. You see a storm coming. You steer left. You see a port. You throttle down. You check the charts. You do the math, and you drive the boat. That feels like your life, doesn't it?
It does.
That sensation of being behind the eyes, making choices, that feels like you.
It's a beautiful image. It's heroic. It's comforting. And it makes us feel safe. It makes you feel in control.
It does. But here's the problem. It's complete bullshit.
It is a total fabrication. A delusion we tell ourselves so we can sleep at night.
Because what we are diving into today is the uncomfortable, frankly terrifying reality that you are not the captain. You might not even be on the bridge.
Not even close.
You are basically a passenger sitting in a deck chair, holding a plastic toy steering wheel that isn't connected to anything, pretending you're turning the ship.
Meanwhile, the real captain, a silent, ancient, and often violent force, is actually steering the vessel from deep below the waterline, in the dark, in the engine room.
We are talking about the unconscious mind, and I want to be clear right off the bat. We are not talking about this soft pop psychology version where you interpret your dreams about losing your teeth to mean you're stressed about work.
No, this isn't that. This is much heavier.
We are talking about the architecture of the abyss. We are looking at the hard science and the darkest corners of psychoanalysis to prove that the conscious mind, the part of you listening to this right now, is just the tiny, tiny tip of an iceberg.
The iceberg analogy is famous for a reason, but people, they really forget the scale of it. They think the unconscious is just a dusty storage locker in the basement.
Yeah, where you keep old phone numbers or the name of your third-grade teacher, a mental junk drawer.
Exactly. But it's not a junk drawer. It is a massive, submerged mountain. And more importantly, it is an autonomous director. It is a sophisticated biological system that is running the show 24/7.
And it makes the big decisions.
Oh, it makes all the big decisions. It decides who you want to fuck, who you want to punch in the face, and how you survive a car crash before you even realize the other car hit you.
That is the stakes for today. We are talking about a subterranean system that handles biological survival, emotional regulation, and the really dark shit that we absolutely refuse to look at in the mirror.
And it follows its own rules. Rules that often have zero regard for your logic, your morality, or your social standing. It doesn't care if you get a promotion. It cares if you survive.
So here's the mission. We are going to map this territory. We're going to go from the wetware, the actual neuroscience of the brain.
The hardware.
The hardware. Then we'll go to the ghosts in the machine, which is the heavy psychoanalytic stuff from Freud and Jung. And then, we're going to the 18+ section.
The fun part. Or the scary part, depending on how you look at it.
We're going to talk about the shadow self, the neurobiology of rage, the sexual undercurrents of society, and we are going to break down some truly horrific legal cases where people committed murder while fast asleep.
The Kenneth Parks case?
Yeah.
That one stays with you. It really shows you the abyss.
It really does. So let's unpack this. Let's start with the hardware, because I think the biggest blow to our ego, to that captain fantasy, is realizing that our brain is physically designed to ignore us.
To really get this, you have to look at the work of Daniel Kahneman. He's a Nobel Prize winner, and he basically he shattered the idea that humans are rational actors. He broke the brain down into two distinct operating systems. He calls them System 1 and System 2.
Now, when people hear two systems, they usually think left brain, right brain, but that's not what this is it?
No, that's an outdated pop psych model.
Yeah?
This is about speed and energy. Think of it this way. System 2 is you.
It's the voice in your head right now that's analyzing what I'm saying.
The narrator. It's the lawyer. It's logical. It's polite. It can do algebra. If I ask you, what is 17 times 24? System 2 has to wake up, put on his glasses, and do the work.
And it feels like work. I can literally feel my brain straining if I try to do that in my head. There's a physical sensation of effort.
That strain is glucose burning. System 2 is expensive to run. It's slow, and frankly, it is incredibly lazy. It doesn't want to work unless it absolutely has to.
So System 2 is the guy on the couch who only gets up if the house is on fire.
Precisely. Then you have System 1. System 1 is the beast. It is fast, it is instinctive, it is emotional, and it is entirely unconscious. And here is the kicker. System 1 runs about 98% of your life.
98%. That sounds That sounds insanely high. I feel like I'm making decisions all day.
You feel like you are.
Yeah.
But that feeling is an illusion. When you look at a face and instantly know that guy is angry, that's system one. You didn't measure his eyebrows or the downturn of his mouth, you just knew.
It's a pattern recognition machine.
Exactly. When I say 2 plus 2, the number 4 just appears in your head. You didn't do math. You retrieved a pattern. That's system one. It operates on heuristics, these lightning-fast mental shortcuts.
So we identify with the lawyer system two, but the beast is actually running the company.
And the lawyer just writes the press releases after the fact. System one does something impulsive, and system two justifies it. Oh, I ate that whole cake because I had a hard day. No, you ate the cake because system one saw sugar and fat, hijack your arm, and your conscious mind just made up a story so you didn't feel like a meat robot.
The example that always freaks me out with this is driving. The highway hypnosis.
Oh, it's the classic example of the disconnect. It's perfect.
I mean, we've all done this. You're driving home. It's a route you know, like the back of your hand. You start thinking about an argument you had or what's for dinner. Suddenly, you pull into your driveway and you realize, I do not remember the last 10 miles.
You have zero conscious memory of it. None.
And that is terrifying. You're piloting a 2-ton death machine at 70 miles an hour. You stopped at red lights, you stayed in your lane, you navigated traffic, but you, the conscious captain, were not there. You were checked out.
System one was driving. And this isn't magic, it's anatomy. We need to get specific here because this is happening in a physical place in your brain. We are talking about the basal ganglia.
The basal ganglia. Okay, so this is deep in the center of the brain, right? This is the old stuff, reptile stuff.
Very ancient. Specifically, there's a structure inside it called the striatum. Some neuroscientists call it the blind watchmaker.
I love that name, the blind watchmaker. It implies this incredible complexity, but without any conscious intent.
Exactly. It doesn't think. It just observes. It extracts patterns for your daily life. It watches you. It notices that every single time you walk into a dark room, your hand reaches out and flips a switch. Every time you get in the car, you put on the seatbelt. It takes these patterns and turns them into rigid, hard-coded habits. It creates a loop.
So it's automating my life so my lazy system too doesn't have to think about it.
Right. And there's a physical shift in the brain when this happens. When you're first learning something new, like trying to learn a new dance move or a riff on a guitar, you're using the dorsomedial striatum. That's the trial and error phase.
That's the clumsy phase where you suck at it.
That's the clumsy phase. It's connected to your thinking brain, your prefrontal cortex. It's messy, it's conscious. But once the habit is formed, once you can play that rick without thinking, control shifts to the dorsolateral striatum.
And what happens when it moves there?
It becomes a chunk, a single automatic block of behavior, a zombie loop. And here is the part that explains addiction and why bad habits are so fucking hard to break. Once a behavior is in the dorsolateral striatum, it becomes insensitive to reward.
Wait, unpack that. Because I thought we did things to get a reward. I drink the whiskey to get the buzz. I smoke the cigarette to get the nicotine hit.
Initially, yes, when you're in the learning phase. But once it's a habit, you do it because you do it. The neural pathway is cemented. You might not even enjoy the whiskey anymore. You might hate the hangover. You might actively, consciously want to stop.
But the circuit doesn't care.
The basal ganglia doesn't give a shit about your feelings. It sees the cue, it's 6:00 p.m. or I just finished a meal, and it executes the script. The reward is irrelevant. The loop just runs.
So when people say, I can't believe I did that again, they aren't just being weak. They are fighting a physical structure in their brain that has gone rogue.
You are fighting a pre-programmed circuit board with a thought. It's a total mismatch in weaponry. The entire architecture is designed to bypass your conscious mind for the sake of efficiency.
And it's not just for habits like brushing your teeth. It's for fear, too. We have to talk about the amygdala.
The fear circuit, yes.
Yeah.
This is the survival alarm of the body.
The first responder.
It's the smoke detector, but it has a direct line to the sprinklers, and it pulls the fire alarm before telling the building manager what's happening. The amygdala learns fear associatively and unconsciously. The classic example, you're walking in the woods, you're chatting with a friend. In your peripheral vision, you see a curved shape on the ground.
Snake.
Instantly. Before your conscious mind can even think the word snake, you have already jumped back 3 feet. Your heart is pounding. Adrenaline is dumping into your system. Your pupils are dilated. You are ready to fight or run for your life.
And then a second later, your thinking brain catches up and you look down and realize it's a stick.
It's a stick. But think about the timeline of what just happened there. You reacted before you knew what you were reacting to.
So my eyes saw it, but they didn't tell me. They didn't tell my conscious brain. They told the amygdala first.
Yes, the visual signal from your eyes splits. One path goes to the visual cortex. That's the slow, scenic, high-definition road where you see the texture of the bark and the leaves. The other path is a dirty, low-resolution shortcut straight to the amygdala.
A fuzzy picture.
A very fuzzy picture. The amygdala asks one binary question. Dangerous. If the answer is even maybe, it hijacks the motor cortex. It triggers the freeze or flee response.
It bypasses the hippocampus, the seat of conscious memory, completely.
It has to. Evolutionarily, it makes perfect sense. If you waited for System 2 to analyze the shape, consult a mental textbook on local reptiles, and then decide to move, you'd be dead. The unconscious chooses survival over accuracy. Every single time.
Which is great if you're a caveman running from a saber-toothed tiger. But we don't live in caves anymore.
No, we live in open-plan offices and we argue on social media. But we still have the exact same caveman wiring. So now, that amygdala hijack isn't triggered by a snake, it's triggered by an email from your boss with the subject line, "We need to talk."
Right. Or a weird look from your partner.
And because it bypasses the conscious mind, we end up screaming at people we love or shutting down completely. And 5 minutes later, we're standing there thinking, why the hell did I do that?
We are walking around with a nervous system loaded with these ancient tripwires and defense protocols that we did not choose and cannot easily access.
That's it. That's the hardware problem.
That sets the stage perfectly. So we're running on this hardware, the basal ganglia and the amygdala, that is designed to keep us alive, not to keep us happy, and certainly not to keep us rational. But that's just the biology. That's the machinery. Now we have to talk about the software, the programming. Because when you look at the ghosts haunting this machine, it gets a whole lot darker.
This is where we leave the neurobiology lab, and we enter the dimly lit therapy room in Vienna. We have to talk about the Austrians.
We have to talk about Freud.
You can't avoid him. I know he's the guy everyone loves to hate these days. You mentioned Freud, and everyone just rolls their eyes and thinks, sex with your mother and cigar phalluses.
Well, to be fair, he was kind of obsessed with that stuff.
He was, absolutely. But you have to put him in context. He was the first person to really map the abyss. Before Freud, if you were mad, you were just mad, or you were possessed by demons. Freud was one who said, no, there's a structure here. So there's a logic to the madness. And his model of the psyche, the tripartite structure, is still, in my opinion, the best way to understand internal conflict.
The id, the ego, and the superego.
Right. He saw the mind as a war zone, a constant, brutal internal civil war between three factions that are always at each other's throats.
Okay, let's break them down. The id is the one we're born with, the baby.
The id is the beast, the raw, primal core. It lives entirely in the unconscious. It operates on one principle and one principle only, the pleasure principle. It wants what it wants, and it wants it now.
It's a spoiled brat.
It's a spoiled brat with a bottomless lust for sex, murder, and food. It has no morality, no logic, no concept of time or consequences. If you stripped away the rest of your brain, you would be a raping, killing, eating machine. That is the engine of the id.
That's a lovely image. So what stops us from being monsters? What keeps the id in its cage?
Well, that's the superego. This develops later in childhood. This is the internalized voice of authority. It's your parents, your teachers, your religion, society. The superego strives for perfection. It doesn't just want you to be good, it wants you to be a saint.
And it's the source of guilt.
It punishes you relentlessly with guilt and shame. So you have the id screaming, I want to kill that guy for cutting me off in traffic. And the superego screaming, you are a terrible, sinful person for even thinking that. You should be ashamed.
And caught in the middle, sweating bullets, is the ego.
The poor manager, the stressed out middle manager trying to keep everyone happy.
Right.
The ego operates on the reality principle. Its job is to try and satisfy the id's crazy primal demands without getting you arrested, fired, or killed.
Right.
It's the negotiator. It's the diplomat. It says, okay, look, we can't kill him. That's bad. But maybe we can fantasize about keying his car or write a really nasty tweet about him.
It's damage control. It's trying to find a socially acceptable outlet for this primal energy.
Exactly. And Freud's core point is that this battle is happening constantly. It consumes a massive amount of your psychic energy. And usually, you don't even know it's happening. You just feel anxious or depressed or tired. That's the smoke rising from the battlefield inside your head.
And we have to mention the Oedipus complex. I mean, it's the elephant in the room with Freud. It's the one everyone knows and makes fun of.
It is. And look, it sounds absolutely insane when you say children want to have sex with their parents.
Yeah.
But if you can strip away the literal incest for a moment, Freud is making a profound point about power and love and desire.
How so? What's the deeper meaning there?
He's saying that the first time a human being encounters overwhelming desire, it's directed at the primary caregiver, usually the mother. And the first time they encounter jealousy, murderous rivalry, and competition, it's toward the other parent who owns that caregiver.
So it's the primary triangle.
It is the first drama. It sets the blueprint for how we deal with authority, love, and competition for the rest of our lives. Are you going to challenge authority or submit to it? Are you going to compete for love or withdraw?
So if you don't resolve that, if you don't successfully navigate that stage and realize I am not the center of the universe,
You end up neurotic. You spend the rest of your life unconsciously looking for a mommy to save you or fighting a daddy figure in your boss and the government everywhere.
But then we have Carl Jung, Freud's star pupil. He was meant to be the crown prince of psychoanalysis. And then they had the biggest, most bitter breakup in the history of psychology.
It was brutal. It was like a father disowning his son. And the core of the split was that Jung just couldn't handle Freud's relentless obsession with sex. Freud thought everything, every dream, every neurosis was ultimately about repressed sexual urges.
And Jung disagreed.
Jung thought, no, this is too small, it's too personal. Jung looked at the unconscious, and he didn't see a trash can full of repressed desires from your childhood. He saw an ocean.
The collective unconscious.
The collective unconscious. Jung believed that beneath your personal memories, your personal unconscious, there's a deeper layer, a layer shared by every human being who has ever lived. It's like a psychic cloud drive for humanity, and it is populated by archetypes.
These are the factor settings of the soul, the universal characters, the hero, the mother, the trickster, the wise old man.
Exactly. That's why you find the same myths, the same symbols, the same stories in ancient China and among the Aztecs and the Vikings and in modern Hollywood movies. They didn't text each other the plot points. They were all pulling from the same source code.
And for Jung, the goal of life wasn't just to suppress the id, to become a functioning member of society. It was something more.
It was individuation.
Becoming whole.
Becoming whole, which for Jung meant integrating the conscious mind with the vast, powerful world of the unconscious. And the biggest, most dangerous obstacle on that journey is the shadow.
The shadow. This is the concept that I think really hits people hard. It's so personal. What is the shadow, really?
The shadow is your dark side. It is everything in your personality that you refuse to acknowledge. It's your aggression, your perversion, your cowardice, your laziness, your selfishness. Everything that doesn't fit the nice, polite self-image you present to the world.
So if your ego says, I'm a nice guy, I don't get angry.
Right. Then all your anger, all your rage goes into the shadow. It gets shoved into the bag. But here is the crucial, critical point. You cannot destroy the shadow. You can only repress it. And if you repress it, it doesn't go away. It grows. It gets denser. It festers in the dark. And eventually, it owns you.
It bursts out. It leaks.
It bursts out when you're drunk or stressed or tired. That nice guy who's always so calm and then suddenly snaps and punches a hole in the wall, that's the shadow taking the wheel for a second. Or, even more commonly, it doesn't burst out. It projects.
This is the part that always gets me. Projection. This is so insidious.
Because you stop seeing it in yourself, and you start seeing your own shadow in other people. If you deny your own selfishness, you will become obsessed, absolutely obsessed, with how selfish other people are. You will hunt them down. You will hate them with a fiery passion that doesn't make any rational sense.
So the things that trigger us most in others, the things that make us irrationally angry,
are almost always reflections of our own disowned garbage. As Jung famously said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves.
which is an incredibly annoying thing to hear when you're pissed off at someone.
It's the last thing you want to hear. But if you don't face it, if you don't turn around and look at what's in that bag, Jung had a terrifying warning. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
That is a haunting line. It means we are writing our own tragedies over and over again, but we're writing them in invisible ink and then acting surprised at the outcome.
We are, and we can't talk about the shadow and the id without talking about what fuels them. We have to go to the 18+ section now, because the engine of the unconscious, at its most basic level, runs on two things: sex and violence.
Eros and Thanatos. The life drive and the death drive.
The creator and the destroyer. Let's start with violence. Because we like to think of aggression as a moral failing, as being mean or losing control. But biologically, It's a tool.
It's resource management.
Aggression is primitive social conduct. It's how you secure territory, how you secure resources, and how you secure mates. And we have a specific dedicated circuit for it in the brain, the hypothalamus-amygdala connection.
How does that circuit fire? What happens in a moment of rage?
In what's called reactive aggression, the kind where you just snap, the limbic system screams threat, the amygdala lights up like a Christmas tree. Now, normally your prefrontal cortex, your logical system too, would step in and say, hey, calm down, it's just a parking spot, it's not worth it. But in a state of rage, that top-down control is too slow. The dampeners fail, the beast gets out of the cage.
And there are actual physical sex differences in this wiring, right? This isn't just a cultural thing.
No, it's biological. Research into a specific area, the ventrolateral part of the ventromedial hypothalamus, the VMHVL, shows something fascinating. In males, this area projects to other brain regions to actively promote aggressions like a fight button. In females, the inhibitory connections coming from that same area are often stronger. It's not that females don't feel rage, but the wiring for the physical release of that rage is modulated differently.
So we are fundamentally hardwired for violence. But what about the other side, the sexual shadow? Jung saw sexuality as something way, way bigger than just biological friction.
Oh, he called it eros. He saw it as a transpersonal power, a numinous force. It's a creative and a destructive energy. And because society requires us to be polite, civilized, and monogamous, a huge amount of our raw sexual energy gets shoved into the shadow.
Which explains why the most outwardly polite, buttoned-up people often have the darkest, most fucked-up fantasies.
Absolutely. The shadow contains the unacknowledged potency of eros. And this includes all the stuff that polite society considers its nightmares. Sadism, masochism, the desire to dominate or be utterly helpless. These are polymorphous desires that don't fit the clean, vanilla narrative of romantic love.
And this is where the source material takes a really interesting and maybe controversial turn regarding BDSM. It suggests that BDSM isn't just kinky sex. It's actually a form of therapy, a practical application of Jungian psychology.
A ritualized confrontation with the shadow. Think about it. In a BDSM scene, you are creating a contained, safe space, a ritual, to consciously act out these dark, powerful dynamics. You're allowing the sadist or the masochist in your shadow to come out and play, but within agreed-upon boundaries and with a safe word.
So instead of oppressing the desire to be powerless until it explodes in some self-destructive midlife crisis, you schedule it for Friday night.
Exactly. It creates a space to integrate those parts of yourself that usually rot in the basement of your psyche. It deals with power, trust, pain, and surrender in a visceral, embodied way. It's a way of engaging the body to heal the mind.
Speaking of rituals and dark sexuality, we have to talk about Eyes Wide Shut, Stanley Kubrick's final movie. The source material highlights this as the ultimate cultural example of the sexual unconscious put on film.
Kubrick was a master at this.
Yeah.
The film isn't really about a marriage. It's about the occult nature of desire itself.
Wow.
When Tom Cruise's character, Dr. Bill, infiltrates that masked orgy at the mansion, he's not walking into a party. He's walking into the collective unconscious.
The masks are the key, right?
The masks are everything. They dehumanize the participants. They strip away their social identities and turn them into archetypes. You don't see Bill or Alice or some banker from Connecticut. You see the male and the female. The movie depicts sex, not as romance, but as a group ritual performed by a gestalt, a single hive mind entity. It bypasses the mental radar.
And that feeling of dread in the movie. It's not sexy in a fun, erotic way. It's sexy in a deeply scary, threatening way.
Because it's staring directly at the occult sexuality within us. It's showing that beneath the tuxedo and the polite dinner conversation, there is a primal, almost religious drive for transgressive pleasure and dominance. Kubrick uses the lighting, the pacing, and that haunting single piano note to bypass your system too and speak directly to your id. It's a masterpiece of psychological horror.
God, that movie still gives me the creeps. Okay, so we've got the hardware, we've got the software, we've got the primal drives of sex and violence. But what happens when the system breaks down completely? What happens when the unconscious takes over? This brings us to trauma and the nightmare.
And the most common nightly way we encounter the unconscious is through dreams. Freud, of course, called dreams the royal road to the unconscious.
But dreams are so fucking weird. They rarely make linear sense. Why is my dad's face on my boss's body while I'm holding a banana and my teeth are falling out? What is that?
That's the dream work. The unconscious is trying to send you a message from the depths, but the conscious mind, even while you're asleep, has a sensor, a bouncer at the door of consciousness, trying to protect you from truths that are too painful. So the unconscious has to encrypt the message. It has to disguise it so it can slip past the guard.
It's hiding the truth to protect us from the truth.
Exactly. And it uses a few main tools. First, condensation. That's smashing two or more people or ideas into one. Your dad's face and your boss's voice in the same dream figure. It means you have the same unresolved authority issues with your boss that you have with your father. The dream is being efficient.
Okay, that tracks. What's next?
Second is displacement. This is a big one. Let's say you're secretly terrifyingly furious with your partner. That's too scary a feeling to face directly in a dream. So in the dream, you're not mad at your partner. You're being chased by a terrifying dog. You shift the intense emotion onto a safer, less threatening object.
And the third, the famous one.
Symbolization. This is the classic Freudian stuff. The unconscious speaks in pictures, in symbols. Phallic symbols, guns, poles, towers, snakes. Ionic symbols, caves, tunnels, boxes, cups. The mind uses physical objects to represent complex sexual or power dynamics.
So the banana.
Sometimes a banana is just a banana, but usually in the language of the unconscious, it's probably not just about potassium.
Fair enough. But what about when the dream doesn't stop when you wake up? What about when the trauma replays itself in waking life? This concept of repetition compulsion is one of the darkest, most tragic things I've ever read about.
It is the tragedy of the unhealed mind. Repetition compulsion, or what some call destiny neurosis, is the unconscious drive to repeat a traumatic situation over and over and over again in a desperate attempt to finally master it.
Give us an example of how this looks in real life, because it sounds completely counterintuitive. Why the hell would I want to get hurt in the same way again?
Relationships are the most common battleground for this. Someone grows up with a neglectful, emotionally unavailable, critical parent. As an adult, they consciously swear they will never be with someone like that. But who do they date? Again and again.
Someone who is neglectful and critical.
Exactly. Why? Because the unconscious isn't logical. Its logic is, this is the original wound. If I can get this person, who is just like my dad, to finally love me and approve of me, then I can go back in time and fix the original wound. It's a rescue mission. But it never, ever works. You just get re-traumatized.
And the source material mentions that for people with deep trauma, the brain gets confused about what love is even supposed to feel like.
Yes. This is crucial. They confuse pain and anxiety with love. If a relationship is calm, stable, secure, and a little boring, it feels wrong. It feels unsafe because it's unfamiliar. But if there was drama, chaos, threat, and high emotional stakes, that feels like home. The bond is stronger because of the threat, not despite it. The body keeps the score. The amygdala has no concept of time. It feels the stress of the past as if it is happening right now in your living room.
That is just heartbreaking. It's like being trapped in a time loop you can't see. But there is a level even beyond that. A level where the mind and body completely disconnect, where the captain isn't just asleep, he's left the ship entirely. We need to talk about the case of Kenneth Parks.
This is the case that keeps forensic psychologists up at night. This is the homicidal somnambulist.
Sleepwalking murder. It sounds like something from a horror movie.
It was 1987. Kenneth Parks was a 23-year-old Canadian man. He had a serious gambling problem. He was in a mountain of debt. He was incredibly stressed. But by all accounts, he loved his in-laws. He called his mother-in-law his best friend. One night, he fell asleep on his couch watching TV.
And then the captain left the bridge.
Completely. He got up, he walked out of his house barefoot. He got into his car. He drove 23 kilometers, that's about 14 miles, to his in-laws' house.
14 miles? That's not just stumbling down the hall to the bathroom. That's navigating highways, intersections, traffic signals.
He navigated it all perfectly, but his conscious mind was completely offline. He arrived at the house, he found a key they'd hidden, he let himself in, he went to the kitchen, he strangled his father-in-law into unconsciousness, and then he picked up a tire iron he'd somehow brought with him, and he bludgeoned his mother-in-law to death.
Jesus Christ.
But here is the detail that makes this truly horrific and proves the power of this unconscious state. During the frenzied attack, Parks severely injured himself. He severed the flexor tendons in both of his own hands.
He cut his hands down to the bone.
Down to the bone. He was bleeding profusely, but he felt zero pain. He was completely oblivious to his own horrific injuries. After the attack, he got back in the car, drove to the nearest police station, walked in covered in blood, and said, "I think I just killed some people."
I think? He wasn't even sure.
He had no conscious memory of it. When the doctors examined him, they realized he was in a state of automatism. His body was a machine carrying out a complex, violent task. His conscious mind system, too, was gone. His basal ganglia and his amygdala were driving the car and swinging the tire iron.
And what was the verdict? How do you prosecute a ghost?
You can't. He was acquitted. The court ruled that legally he wasn't there. It wasn't an insanity defense, it was non-insane automatism. His mind was not responsible for the actions of his body.
That is the ultimate terrifying proof of the legal unconscious. It's the scariest thought possible, that your body can perform complex, goal-directed, violent actions while you are essentially dead to the world.
It shows that the driver we talked about at the beginning, the conscious captain, can be locked out of the bridge entirely and the ship keeps moving. And sometimes the ship has weapons.
If that doesn't make you question the nature of free will, I honestly don't know what will. But we aren't just at the mercy of our own internal biology, we are also at the mercy of others who know how to pull these levers. The final piece of this puzzle is how this system can be hacked. Manipulation.
If the unconscious is a machine that runs on association and repetition, then it can be programmed. And the history of psychology is, unfortunately, full of scientists treating the human psyche like a lab rat.
We have to mention the little Albert experiment.
1920. John Watson. This was before ethics boards existed, obviously. He took a healthy, stable 9-month-old baby, Albert. He showed him a fuzzy white rat. The baby liked the rat. He wanted to play with it.
Just a cute kid, a cute rat. Harmless.
Then, every time the rat appeared, Watson stood behind the baby and banged a hammer against a steel bar. A terrifying, loud, crashing sound.
Creating pure, unadulterated terror in an infant.
Pure, visceral, System 1 terror. Soon, just the sight of the rat sent the baby into screaming fits. But it didn't stop there. The fear generalized. He became terrified of rabbits, of dogs, of a fur coat, even a Santa Claus mask with a white beard. They programmed a phobia into a human being.
They intentionally wired a bug into his core software.
They did. And then there was the monster study in 1939, which is just as horrifying as it sounds.
The name alone is a giveaway.
It's fitting. They took orphans, vulnerable, powerless children, and split them into 2 groups. One group got positive speech therapy and praise. The other group, children who spoke perfectly normally, were relentlessly criticized and belittled. They were told they were developing a stutter. They were told not to speak unless they were absolutely sure they could do it perfectly. They were psychologically bullied by the researchers.
And they started to stutter.
They developed crippling speech impediments. They became anxious, withdrawn, and silent. The researchers fundamentally and permanently altered their personalities and self-image through relentless negative reinforcement. It proved that you can program a human being's identity without their consent, just by attacking their unconscious vulnerabilities.
And while we don't do those specific monstrous experiments anymore, we are being experimented on every single day. We just call it marketing now.
We call it subliminal capitalism. We think we buy things because we want them. That's a joke. You buy things because your unconscious is being systematically primed and manipulated.
Talk about the design of a shopping mall, because that is a very specific kind of psychological hell designed for one purpose.
It's called the Gruen effect. The layout is intentionally confusing and labyrinthine to disorient you. There are no clocks on the walls. There are very few windows to the outside world. You lose your sense of time and place. And the music, it's often slowed down, instrumental versions of familiar songs. This induces the state of mild trance, a feeling of awe and comfort. It's all designed to shut down your logical system 2, your wallet watcher, and open up your impulsive emotional system 1.
And then there's subliminal advertising. This isn't just tinfoil hat conspiracy stuff. It's real priming.
It is. If I flash an image of a brand of soda on a screen for a single millisecond, you don't consciously see it. Your system 2 has no idea it was there. But if you are already thirsty, you are statistically much more likely to choose that specific brand when you get to the vending machine. It doesn't force you to do something against your will, but it primes the pump. It tips the scales of your unconscious preference.
So let's bring this all together. This has been a hell of a journey. We've gone from the neurons firing in the basal ganglia to the ancient archetypes of Jung to sleepwalking killers and the music in a shopping mall.
And the picture that emerges is, well, it's humbling, to say the least.
It's the illusion of freedom. We walk around all day thinking we are these rational, independent agents making conscious choices, but really, our habits are driving the car, our shadow is picking our toxic partners, and our amygdala is deciding when to be afraid, all before we even get a memo.
Modern freedom is largely a story. It's an illusion maintained by the conscious mind to keep you from freaking out. If you actually realized, moment to moment, how much of your life is determined by pre-programmed neurocircuitry and ancient biological drives, you'd probably have a panic attack.
The line between mind and body, between me, the thinker, and the machine, is so much blurrier than we want to believe.
It's psychoided, to use Jung's term. The physical and the psychological are not separate things. They are two sides of the same mysterious coin.
So what do we do? Is there any hope? Or are we just sophisticated meat robots acting out a script written by evolution and childhood trauma?
There is hope, but it requires brutal, honest work. The only way to actually have a semblance of free will is to make the unconscious conscious. You have to be willing to look at the shadow. You have to understand your triggers. You have to catch System 1 in the act before it hijacks you.
As Jung said, and it's worth repeating, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Exactly. Awareness is the only light we have to shine into the abyss. It's the only way to grab the wheel back from the autopilot, even if it's just for a few moments at a time.
So we'll leave you with this final provocation, a thought to keep you up tonight. If the unconscious is the engine and your consciousness is just the hood ornament, polished and shiny but connected to nothing, who or what is actually living your life right now?
And more importantly, what is your shadow doing while you're sitting there, politely listening to this deep dive?
Thanks for joining us in the abyss. Sleep tight.